Venus, of course, is the first and the most obvious placement of like, this is where we get to be magnetic. And when we're magnetic, that's when we attract money. And it's because we're in our natural gifts, because we're like, ooh, I feel lit up. I feel good doing this. And so I'm going to make money this way. And it's also the same root of love. So the same way that we magnetize money is the same way that we magnetize a relationship. And also, if we are not actually living out those types of gifts, we're probably attracting the wrong relationship and we're probably blocking our money.
Welcome to the Mindful Method podcast, where we don't just fill your ears, we fill your mind with the tools to enhance your emotional and physical reality. I'm your host, Jordana Sade, here to guide you on this journey of the body-brain connection and help you take your power back to create the life you've always wanted. So grab a seat, because class is in session and our method is on the syllabus. Here at the Mindful Clinic, we're not just changing your mind, we're changing your life. One mindful moment at a time. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Mindful Method podcast. Today I have Miss Natalie Holbrook here. And a funny story about this podcast recording. We're going to get into it all. But first of all, I'll let Natalie introduce herself. We've had her on the podcast before. This might be my very first time having somebody on twice. Nope, Brandon was the first. You're the second. But when I'm repeating, it's always a good thing. But we tried to record this podcast yesterday and we ended up just talking for 3 hours about some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I think it's just like really relevant to understand. So first of all, Natalie is an astrologer amongst so many other things, but we talked a lot about like the astrology right now and then subconscious blocks. And like yesterday just was not meant to be the day that we recorded this. So you're actually coming into this, like listening to this episode after us literally having done 3 hours of prep work, we'll call it. So it's going to be so epic. But just welcome back to the Mindful Method, Natalie. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm just so honored to be here. And, I just love how the universe brought us together and really brought us together to do this episode on the Leo full moon. We've also been trying to do this second episode for, I think, like 3 months now, maybe.
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
So,
yeah.
of course, we had to do it on the Leo full moon.
Yes. Okay. So Natalie, can you just give us a little intro? Like I know you've done this before, but a little intro to who you are, what you do, and then what you're working on right now.
Yes. So I am a professional astrologer, first off, and I also am an expert in sales and business and marketing and all of the things. And right now, I combine the two of them together. So I am launching a program in about a month that is called Holy Wealth, and it is all about utilizing astrology to really step into who you are, understand your subconscious blocks, and then be able to create this like badass business that is super aligned with you and live on purpose and make a shitload of money doing it.
I will say, I don't even know if I've said this to Natalie before, but like as most of you guys know, I'm like a hardcore academic. Like I have multiple degrees in psychology. And it's so funny because the people who I've worked with, when I was still in school or when I was like learning about psychology, I'm like, this is the answer, this is the answer. But I actually fully believe now that astrology has taken over my psychology mind. Like now when I meet somebody, I'm like, just tell me your sun, moon, and rising. And like, then I'm just going to understand everything. But astrology really has changed my life in so many ways. I actually like look more towards that than I do to even like, it's everything combined, but inner wounds or mother wound healing or like all of it's related. But astrology is for me that kind of that like North Star, no pun intended, for where I like what areas of my life I need to look at. So thanks for coming back. I love the idea. Obviously, I am a business owner. And if you are listening to this and you're an entrepreneur as well, or if you just want to make a lot more money, because like there's so much available to us. So like, why aren't we utilizing this? Natalie, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how we can use our astrology to be able to understand how to receive money, what areas to like work at. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Okay. So, whenever we think about astrology and money, a lot of people are like, oh, just look to your Venus sign. And Venus, of course, is the first and the most obvious placement of like, this is where we get to be magnetic. And when we're magnetic, that's when we attract money. And it's because we're in our natural gifts, because we're like, ooh, I feel lit up. I feel good doing this. And so I'm going to make money this way. Now, it's funny because Valentine's Day is tomorrow, right? And it's also the same root of love. So, the same way that we magnetize money is the same way that we magnetize a relationship. And also, if we are not actually living out those types of gifts, we're probably attracting the wrong relationship and we're probably blocking our money. So, Venus is one of, I always say, like, first of all, just like the most basic thing, look to your Venus sign. Then, and by the way, I'm going to give all of your listeners, I have a guide. It's called The Secret Guide to, or the, what is it even called? It's like the hidden money in your chart. Yeah, it's the hidden money, the secret money in your chart. There we go. So I'm going to give you guys a guide, but it basically talks about all of this. But so you have your Venus sign, then you also have Jupiter, which is your blessings and your abundance. So wherever you do have this additional blessing and abundance, you want to use that within your work as well, and just within like your manifestation, honestly, because Jupiter's just going to be like, oh, they're on point. Like, let's give them this too. And then you have Pluto. Okay. So I'm giving you guys like the full deep dive. Like most people are like Venus, and I'm like, okay, there's actually a lot more going on under the scenes. So Pluto is where we actually have our ultimate power, because Pluto is the death and rebirth and the like nitty gritty destructive, I feel like I'm gonna die transformation. And so when we can actually overcome our Pluto, which is gonna lead into what you and I talked about yesterday, because I realized last night that's all about what it was for me, is that that's actually your ultimate source of wealth and transformation. Because a lot of times Pluto, what's funny is in the solar system, Pluto is a dwarf planet. And so a lot of people are like, oh, Pluto's not a planet. But it's kind of like that saying where it's like, little man, big ego, right? And so that's what Pluto is. Pluto's like this little dwarf planet, but it has this huge effect on us. And so it lives in the subconscious. So when you overcome your Pluto, that's the ultimate rise to power. Then we also have the houses. So you can look to your second house ruler. So for you, Jordana, as an Aquarius rising, your second house would be Pisces. And so when you act, so the best way that you actually make money is when you bring in this spiritual aspect, is also when you study and bring in psychology, because Pisces in the shadow is mental health, mental health problems or mental health, resolutions. And so you working in that realm, like you're right on track. And the more that you step into your spirituality and working with the other side, which we always talk about, then that is where also your money comes from. Then we have the fourth house, and the fourth house is where everything is like hidden from you. So it's kind of like this additional piece that you need to work through to make sure that you're not blocked. So yours there is Taurus. And so when you have the Taurus energies come in, sometimes those can subconsciously block you, whether it's a Taurus person or right? When we look
LOL.
at Taurus, though, Taurus really is all about, do I feel worthy? So I know personally that you've had a worthiness journey, right? So it's like you had to get through that worthiness journey to then be able to receive. And then the last piece, so there's six of these, and no one else talks about this. I actually developed this method. So the last one is the eighth house, and the eighth house is where you're actually receiving money from inheritances. And so that's like a really cool thing. So for you, that's Virgo. So when you are in your medicine, when you are structured, it's like you're able to receive better when you have these things. So you're kind of in this like Pisces and Virgo axis of like, there's this piece of me that's like, I make the money that I see when I'm in the spiritual side. But when I have all of my ducks in a row, when I'm organized, when I'm working with the medicine, when I'm working on my body, all the Virgo traits, that's when passive money actually comes in for you,
Whoa, that's fascinating. We did
right?
not talk about this yesterday. That's
No,
so crazy. Because I do actually even recognize in my own chart, like in my own days when I'm not, like going to Pilates every day. And it's not because, like I have to be thin, or it's like it's that structure that like keeps me successful. But I also, since incorporating the spiritual side, like the mental health, all that, like that's what my business is run on. Like that's how I have a seven-figure business, so it's like yeah, all of this makes actually perfect sense.
right? It's so magical, especially for me when I realized this piece of the fourth house, which is what your subconscious is going through, and the
Mhm.
Pluto component it was like, wow, next level, because that's actually where our blocks are. And I think that a lot of people will realize like, oh yeah, like for me personally, my second house is actually Virgo. And so I make money when I am structured, when I am in some type of healing role, when I am doing something where I'm like giving a lot of service, right? But then when I receive money passively, it's when I'm doing the things that are the subconscious, right? When I'm in the realm of the magic, like that's where it all kind of comes in. But then the fourth house for me is Scorpio. And Scorpio is all about things that are hidden from you. And so for me, I actually had to realize these things that were under the surface. And every single time that I would do, whether it was like trauma healing or I would go deep within myself, I would then make a ton of money. So it's really powerful to be able to understand all of these pieces.
Okay, so we know about Venus, and if you're new to astrology, it's okay that you didn't know that before. But honestly, truly, when people talk about money making and like and love, it's always Venus. Like that's always what we talk about.
Mhm.
So my Venus is in Libra, and it's so funny because I'm like a very aesthetic person, and Libras are very aesthetic, and there's a huge part of me that felt conflicted about like okay, I'm in this like holistic health realm, and like it's very kumbaya and like everyone's sober and like da, da. But like I'm actually very eclectic and like I'm very like materialistic. And so like it's for me it was about like actually understanding how to marry those two, because if I go too far into something I'm not, like I'm actually not honoring my Venus, which is where that money is coming from and also where that love
Yes.
is coming from. Also, fun fact, I'm dating a double Libra right now, and literally every time I see him, he comments on my style, and it's like the funniest thing ever. I feel so seen. Um, okay, but so I really want to start getting into this like subconscious, Pluto, all of that stuff, because obviously, like so much of my practice is understanding the subconscious. So when it
Mhm.
comes down to, making money and understanding limiting beliefs and the way like where Pluto is in our chart, like could you even go through like what Pluto would look like for each sign?
Yes, absolutely. I actually have a guide here and I literally pulled up my guide. So I'm going to even just go through this.
Love
And
it.
I want to say, I want to preface too that this also, I mean, obviously, this is a podcast about your mind, right? And about all of the things that our mind controls, which is everything in our lives. So the piece there is like, it is so important to just know that everything I'm about to say is that this affects not just your money, but it also affects your body. It affects your health. It affects the weight that you're holding on to, right? It affects every single just component of who you are. So it's your Pluto sign, but as I'm going to say this, if you have your sun, moon, or rising in one of these, and if you don't know your sun, moon, or rising, I actually just installed a chart calculator on my website that you can
Oh
go get
yeah,
your chart. It's so epic. So my website is lovenatalieholbrook.com.
I'll link
And
it
you
up.
just plug it in. It's free. It's so simple. And you can even click, it's the coolest thing. You can even click on like the description. There's like a description and it will give you a little blurb about like if you have your eighth house sun, like like whatever it is, it's epic. Yeah. So if you need to go pause the podcast. And like, I'm like, I'll take over hosting duties, pause. Go get your chart. And then just listen for sun, moon, or rising. Okay. So if you are an Aries, Sun, Moon, Rising, or Pluto, then you have this need to completely receive validation. If we think about the Aries energy, it's a lot of like, I'm first, I'm going, I'm strong, I'm a leader, I'm a trailblazer. But the shadow of that, the place where people get caught up in, like in their subconscious, is like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough unless I go do these things, unless I'm winning. So there's this piece of like constantly needing validation, very similar to Leo. They're all the fire signs actually have this. But then for Aries, also, it's like very impatient with itself. It's like, why aren't I doing this? Why aren't I here yet? Why did this take me so long? I actually have a lot of Aries energy too. And what Jordana and I were just talking about yesterday is that I received, some hormone information. And my first thought was like, I cried because I was like, this has been 15 years. I'm so fucking pissed, And that's like very strong Aries. But also there's this piece of needing to be so perfect in the image. And, we can even get on this like kind of like religious, spiritual sense, actually, that if we think about Aries in a biblical terms, Jesus actually represents Aries because Jesus was like with the lamb and it's like the son of God in the image of man. And that's the first sign of the zodiac. It's like he sent his son. So, and then Aries is like a sun type of energy. So there's a whole thing here where like
Oh,
astrology was literally in the Bible. Like it's crazy.
wow.
So I know that's a big tangent.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into, so they want to win, they need to succeed. There's this competition and comparison, and it's really this feeling of like subconsciously they just don't feel good enough unless they have an image and this like reputation, and that is what gives them their self-worth.
Mm,
Yeah. And then we get into Taurus, and Taurus is all about worthiness. Taurus is like, what is your value? Do you feel worthy? And, I'm a Taurus sun. And so my entire life, I was like, of course I'm worthy. Of course I'm this and this and this. But like deep down, I did not feel it. And I didn't realize that until it was looking at the actions that I was taking, because your actions, sometimes we don't realize our own thoughts, right? Until we see the actions that we're doing. Like I used to sleep around a lot, and I was binge eating and I was drinking excessively. So there's this energy of like, I don't have enough because I don't feel worthy. It's filling the space of drugs or sex or money or whatever it is to somehow feel that worthiness. So that's the Taurus one. Gemini. Oh my gosh, I love my Geminis. Like, you guys are so creative, and I have a Gemini moon, so I really get this. But there's this deep feeling of being misunderstood because there's so many, people always joke, like, oh, Geminis have so many personalities, but it's because they're so versatile. But underneath it, the subconscious piece is like, I don't understand myself. How is anyone else going to understand me? Because there's so many thoughts going on in the mind. And there's also this deep fear of commitment because there are so many ideas, and Gemini is very excitable. It's the first air sign. And so it will really think about like, or it'll just feel like, how can I commit to one thing? And subconsciously, it doesn't want to commit because it's afraid of being tied down. Therefore, it won't be free and it won't be able to be creative. It won't be able to express who it really is. And Gemini, actually, all of the air signs, Gemini, Aquarius, and Libra, can have these very strong ADHD type of tendencies because they're so creative. Because if you think about air energy, I'm even talking like an air sign right now. It's like, whew, like there's so much going on that it has this very subconscious fear of like, what if I'm not able to get all of my thoughts out or do everything? And then a lot of times it can then sabotage itself because it's in that space of fear. And then it's like so overwhelmed that then it just gives up or it binge eats or it does drugs or it, is down on itself, whatever that looks like.
Mhm. I am I dated a Gemini very briefly, and he's polygamous, and that's obviously why we're not still dating. Really good guy, awesome, loved him, but like he cannot commit like at all. And then the I'm not allowed to date Tauruses anymore, but the Taurus that I did date had a Gemini Venus, and I remember being like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Like literally, your Gemini, like your love is in this like not able to commit, and that's exactly what I saw in that relationship.
Totally. It's really hard. And I actually have that placement too. So I have Gemini Venus as well. And there's a reason why I'm still single. You know what I mean? And it's not because I'm like, I don't want you or you or you. It's more so of like, I move so quickly, my mind moves so quickly, and my heart moves so quickly that it's like, it's not like it moves on from people, but it's like almost like an ADHD heart where it's like, oh, my focus is over here now. And like right now, I don't even care about love. So it's something that all, I think, air is specifically Gemini and Aquarius Venuses really have to work on, is that like focus on like, if I really want this thing, I have to commit to it and I have to like intentionally commit to it.
So, when we're talking about, because you're saying like Sun, Moon, Venus, obviously, and then Pluto is like where the subconscious shit is coming. So when we're talking about like manifesting money, these like if you have Gemini and Pluto, then it's going to like how you master it is it's going to show up in like mastering the it like fear of being misunderstood. Just so that I'm getting this clear.
Exactly. But the thing is that it's honestly, you want to look at your sun, moon, and rising
Mm,
because for Pluto, we actually want to look more at the house because Pluto is a very slow moving planet. So it moves every 20 years or so. So for us, like we're born around the same time. I mean, anyone who's born between 1983 to 1995, we all have our Pluto in Scorpio.
Oh,
So all of us are very much about let's get into the depths of things. We all go through crazy ass deaths and rebirths, like we have this thing of like, let's go try to be bad. And then we're like, okay, the dark side was really dark and scary. Like, let's actually transcend and go to the light, which is what Pluto is all about, and also it's an underlying Scorpio energy. So if you have your Pluto in Gemini, I don't think you're still alive right now.
fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair.
So the
Yeah.
people who are living right now are the people who are
Mhm.
Pluto in Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. They're the ones who are like a decade younger than us. And the
Mm.
people who are being born right now are the Plutos in, or the people who are like, I don't know, 15 and younger are Pluto in Capricorn, or I guess 18 and
Mm.
younger,
Yeah. Right.
because we just went through that cycle. And now for all the little starseed children that are being born right now, they're all going to be Pluto in Aquarius. So we're just
Terrifying.
getting some alien babies coming through.
Yeah. I'm literally terrified for this.
Don't be terrified. They're really star seeds actually. Like it really is like we're just ascending so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, we'll keep going through. So for
Yeah.
Cancer,
Mhm.
the deep subconscious fears here are abandonment and fear of rejection. There's a lot of attachment and codependency because beautiful Cancers want family. They want family and they want to create community and they want to have this experience that's really dreamy and romantic and very similar to Libra because it's like, this is the family, this is the fairy tale, this is, we all sit around the fire and have s'mores and it's so fun and chummy. And so the opposite of that is like, well, what if I didn't have that? Or what if that goes away? So with every single Cancer, we think about, well, who created that or who didn't create that? The mother. So there's a
Mhm.
deep mother wound. So mother wound, attachment, people pleasing as well is really big. And then that abandonment and fear of rejection.
Mhm.
So then we move into Leo, and Leo is here to be bright and to be bold and to be a superstar. And a lot of Leos just have this subconscious fear of like, well, what if I'm judged when I'm myself? Like, who am I really anyway? And they don't put themselves out there. And there's this fear of not being loved, of not being celebrated, and this deep, deep, deep need for constant validation, whether that is online, whether that is in love, whether that is, with gifts or whatever it is, there's a deep need for that. And there's also a kind of this like secret of being very territorial as well. Like, this is mine, you are mine, do not talk to anyone else. And, even territorial with their own love. Like, you do not deserve me, which, I'm a Leo rising and I've definitely been that way too. There's a lot of perfectionism with Leos. And oh, we need to say also, just as important, obviously, you reminded me of this, is your Chiron. This is your Chiron. Like, this, what I'm speaking to is
Leo
Sun,
is
Moon,
my
Rising.
Chiron, like
Yeah, and
actually.
this is
Yeah.
Jordana's Chiron, everyone. Yeah.
I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. There's a lot of perfectionism, because it wants to be this beautiful, perfect image and this celebrity and essentially this like illusion that we've all bought into of what is perfect. Because Leo does have this natural composure and ability to channel that energy, but it's like, but are you really happy inside? And so for all Leo energies, it's like, yes, you can create this superstar image for yourself, but make sure you're actually living your life.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always know, like, so Leo and Chiron. So Chiron is the planet of the wounded healer. And so that's where like the wounds show up. So people always assume that I have fire energy in me, but I have zero, well, not zero fire, but like zero fire in my like top three chart. But my Leo's in Chiron. So when I feel wounded, it's always I'm not seen, I'm not heard, nobody's recognizing me. Like it's that like that bitterness that like projectors get when like they're not like seen or like I get the invitation and it's just the worst. It's just the worst.
Yeah. And a really good way to also know the energies that you have is that your sun being in Scorpio, even though Scorpio is a water sign, it's ruled by Mars, which is a fire planet. So we can get so intricate and deep into astrology where it's like one removed, one removed, one removed, where
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah,
actually
yeah.
have this like you're a Virgo, but you're a secret Scorpio, because it
Mm-hmm.
lives in the Scorpio house,
Mm.
right?
Oh yeah,
So,
totally. Yeah,
mhm,
totally.
mhm,
I
yeah.
totally am a Scorpio. like
You're such a Scorpio. When I
like that
first met
was
you, I thought
one
you were a
sign
Scorpio.
that it's I'm a Scorpio for sure.
Totally, yeah. And it's funny because we look to our sun sign and whatever house it's in, like I would be a Capricorn and I'm like very Capricorn. Like there's
Are
a lot
so
of that.
Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They're really funny. Okay, so getting to your actual sun sign, Virgo. So, the biggest one for Virgo, and I learned this right away, that basically just encapsulates all of it, is I'm not good enough. Like there's this deep, I'm not good enough. So I'm going to fill myself with all of these other things that are going to make me feel good enough. Right. But it's a very critical mindset that it has, because the beauty of Virgo is that it can actually very easily see a problem and solve it. It can read test results and be like, here you go. This is what you need. And it also is a channel. It really has this beautiful ability so it's ruled by Mercury, and Mercury is the planet of communication. And so I always like to think of it. I always see this. Maybe you'll see this for yourself too. But I always see this like bright, sunny light. Oh my God, it's actually happening right here. So I
Actually
always see
happening.
like a light coming in
Yeah.
through Virgo, and then
Mhm.
it like comes in and it comes out of the body,
Mhm.
because they're ruled by Mercury. So it's like there's this sense of communication coming from above, and it
Mhm.
literally comes out through them, through the body, whether they're writing something with their hand, they're typing something out, they're speaking it, because Virgo is an earth sign. So it's like there's so much in its head that it needs to put out into the world, because it
Mhm.
needs to materialize it, right? It needs to turn it into something tangible. So
Yeah.
if Virgo is not actually doing it, this is where all of these deep subconscious beliefs will come in and really wreck it, because it's not actually using its gifts. So all
Mhm.
of you Virgo, Sun, Moon, Risings, and Chirons, this is your permission slip to put your gifts out into the world, because we're waiting for you, And there can be this like procrastination due to perfectionism. There can be this like paralysis analysis. So it's really letting go of all of those things and knowing you have such a huge gift. Like Virgos are so gifted, and that's why they have to sometimes go through these like deep, deep, deep problems, especially with their bodies, because the body keeps the score, and it's like Virgos are here to literally analyze and figure that out and
Mhm.
like twist it into something beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny because I really only started like intentionally tapping into my like intuitive gifts a couple of years ago, like after Veda was born. And now I'm just so fucking far off the deep end. Like now a client can come on a call and I'm like, it's your right ovary. And she's like, oh my God, I've got a cyst there. And I'm like, yes. I really do like see that channel, especially in my coaching and my groups. But I was like, oh, I'm going to start to learn how to scry. Like, I don't, if you, for anyone who doesn't know what scrying is, one of the reasons why I love it is because Aphrodite was like one of the first person who started scrying, but there's another goddess as well, the goddess of sun. I forget her name, but scrying is essentially like, you can do it in a crystal ball, you can do it in fire. Like scrying is like seeing what's like messages and you could say the future, making predictions or like what's going on with somebody. And as I'm reading the book on like how to scry, I'm like, I've been fucking doing this my whole life, like without even actually knowing it. Like one of and now that I'm tapping into it more and utilizing it more and I'm recognizing it, it's crazy. Some of the shit will come out of me and some clients will be like, can you repeat that? And I'm like, actually, no, because like, I don't even know where that came from. Like, it's just like it channels and it's like, and then it's just done. And so it's a really,
That is
really,
so cool.
mhm.
Yeah, that, I mean, we've talked about this, but you are a very powerful witch. And, like,
Hi, babes. I am so excited to talk to you about my signature program, The Mindful Method. This is the exact same method that I have been using with hundreds of successful clients to help you heal your relationship to food, to increase confidence, and to lose weight without dieting or killing yourself at the gym. If you're sick of not feeling like your best self, if you're sick of promising yourself that you'll start again on Monday, if you're sick of going on restrictive diets only to gain back the weight, I can tell you right now that if you gained it back, it did not work. You know what's healthy and what's not. You do. You just continue to choose the unhealthy option anyways. And a meal plan will not solve this issue. There is no amount of restriction or discipline or willpower that is going to stop you from self-sabotaging. The body follows the mind. Imagine a life where you don't have to think about what you can or can't eat. Imagine a life where you feel confident in all of your clothes, where every day in every way your body rebalances and you lose all of the weight so you find the truest, healthiest version of yourself. Imagine never having to start again on Monday. This is what happens when you focus on transforming the brain so weight loss is effortless. The body follows the mind, and it's time you actually get to the root cause of your issue. If you are ready to transform and find the truest, healthiest version of you without letting go of your favorite foods, I invite you to fill out the application in my bio. And if you're a good fit, we'll be in touch soon. Back to regular programming.
I mean, like that, like, yeah, the Virgo and Scorpio house combination plus your Aquarius rising is just super next level. And what I love about it too is, you know, if anyone on here is questioning working with Jordana, like fucking go do it. Like give her all of your money, like go do it because she will change your life. She's literally changed my life. And, you know, I didn't even like intentionally ever sign up for one of your programs. I came into your program to give astrology readings to people. But, you know, in your chart also, because you do have a lot of that sixth house energy, you have your Mars and your moon in the sixth house. The sixth house is literally the house of health. So it's like that is what drives you. And also that is your intuitive gift. And then you pair it with all these other things that we're talking about, and we get you.
Oh, Natalie.
Yeah.
Thank you. My Leo and Chiron seems very seen right now. So I really appreciate that.
This is the gift of my Leo rising. I'm like the ultimate hype woman. Like this is all Leo, sun, moon, and risings. We're the ultimate hype people. Like a lot of us are publicists actually because we're so good at hyping people up. Okay, so let's move on to Libra. So Libra, you know, Libra is the scales and it's the balance, and it just has this fear of like being alone. Very similar to Cancer, actually, is that it's like I feel imbalanced if I don't have someone or something else with me. And so the huge, just literally lifelong journey for Libra is love yourself and be okay being by yourself because you are going to have love, right? But it's like you're going to keep attracting the wrong type of love until you are whole. And, you know, again, there can kind of be this like deep indecisiveness because think about the scales. It's like if the scale moves just a little bit, it's like, I don't know. And I think a lot of that comes from not trusting themselves. Like that's kind of that deep core subconscious piece is, do I trust myself? And then the projection is, do I trust others? And so then, you know, I have a friend where we went through something for a while because she wouldn't trust me, but it was really because she would trust herself. And there was always these projections of like, you're always late or you're always this, you're always that. And at this one point I was like, do you even want to be my friend? Like, because you're just always being critical and judgmental of me. She also had her Venus in Virgo. So there was this like critical, judgmental type of energy. And finally she realized, oh my gosh, it's because I have so much shame in a lot of my trauma that I'm just projecting out all of my things on other people. So the Libra energy is very Libra and Gemini especially are the most like social signs. Like they need to have there's like this need for communication constantly. I'm going to say Leo too goes in there. But you really have to be okay with yourself and go deep because some Libras want to only be on the surface, but then you'll live a surface life and you're never going to be happy. But if you go deep into who you are and like what does bring you balance and literally what brings you balance in your body, like your kidneys, like all of the things, right? Like look into these things because like my little sister's a Libra and she always had kidney issues and UTIs, you know? So yeah, there's even, I mean, maybe we'll do episode 3, but
Body
there's
map.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Body map with
like in
astrology.
3 months. Yeah. Yeah. There's medical astrology. It's so real. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
So Virgo is the digestive system. So it makes sense that, you know, you do all the healing work on the gut. Okay. So then we get into Scorpio. Scorpio is really about the fear of vulnerability and being truly seen for who they are because every single Scorpio, sun, moon, rising, made a contract with the universe to go through some type of trauma in this lifetime so that they could learn how to rise from the ashes. Especially if you also have eighth house. And, you know, you and I both have eighth house energy. So we both made that contract too. And so, yeah. So here we are.
Yeah.
So there's this deep fear though of betrayal. And there's kind of this energy of like, well, I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me, you know? And it's fear of being alone also, an obsession with power and control so that they won't be hurt. Like underneath it all, like if you were to open up a Scorpio, it's like this little squishy thing inside of it. So like that's what all Scorpios really are. They're so sensitive. Yeah.
That makes so much sense.
I
I
Yeah.
just found out my son is a Scorpio moon.
Oh,
Anyways.
So he's going to be very powerful because, you know, the moon sign is that because the moon is your emotional nature. So it's like they have to overcome that. So there will, you know, he's going to be a little wizard like his mama.
I
Yeah.
actually bought everybody, like him and Veda, magic wands when I went to London, like from the Harry Potter store. And like he
Amazing.
loves doing spells and stuff with me. He just like doesn't realize that I'm doing it.
Yeah. Just give him a few years and he will be. Yeah. All right. So then we get into Sagittarius, and Sagittarius, this is our final fire sign, and it really is all about freedom. So there's this fear of not being free. So very similar to Gemini because they're on the same axis. Every sign has an opposite sign and they have very similar issues and very similar gifts. So, Gemini is like, oh my gosh, no one understands me. And Sagittarius is like, no one understands me. I'm going to go seek all over the world and never sit down. And, so there's this fear of not being also understood, not feeling smart, and needing to escape. And so a lot of Sagittarius can also be either binge eaters or have excessive drug use or alcoholism, or overspending, because Sagittarius is also ruled by the planet Jupiter, which is about excess. And
Mm.
so there's this sense of like, do I have enough? Am I enough? I have to buy all the courses. I have to get all the food. I have to buy all the clothes. And it's this feeling of like not being enough or not being free. It will feel contained. And so then it will like lash out in these ways of exaggerating, whether it's mental or physical or actual tangible things in front of it.
Hmm. Yeah, so the I was just like on an astrology app today and I was like looking at the compatibility of Virgo and Scorpio. I mean, Sagittarius, because I'm contemplating dating a Sagittarius. And it was like bad match, a lot of challenges because Virgo is so like I want to put everything in a box and like I have to understand and Sagittarius is like I want to flee the box and like I don't want to be like contained in anything. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it would be a very difficult match. I don't
That's
recommend it.
why
I mean, it depends on what else is happening in the chart, right? But it's like
that's
that
why
would be
yesterday you just brushed over it. I'm like, what about this guy? You were like, don't get attached to anything. Like that was your answer.
yeah. Okay, so we'll go into the last three. So Capricorn, Capricorn is known as being like the boss babe. It's the workaholic. It's, this like Michelle Obama is a Capricorn. So it's a cool energy. Like Capricorns are not just like all work and no play. Like it's more so of like lots of work, lots of play, work hard, play hard. And they have to really find the balance in that because, I'm a testament of this. I have my Mars in Capricorn and I have my sun in the Capricorn house, is that you can burn out really fast and you don't even realize that you're burnt out, which is, I think after we go through this, we should talk about this. But like, I
Yeah.
didn't even realize that I had all of these issues because I was like, I'm so driven by my work and I have all this purpose. And so I'm excited about it that you don't even realize your body's deteriorating sometimes. Right.
Mhm.
And with Capricorn, there is this deep need to prove itself. And that's, exactly what I was, is this need for proving that you're good enough or that you're not a disappointment. I had a lot of trauma around someone when I was younger told me that I was the biggest disappointment in their life. And that always stuck with me. And so I think that that was even a piece of my work because I was always like, I'm not a disappointment. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to be known. I'm going to be recognized. I'm going to be, rich, all of these things. So you're constantly proving it yourself. So that's the biggest thing. And then, of course, there can be this like detachment from emotions and not being vulnerable because you're just so focused on achievement. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Then we have Aquarius. So Aquarius is really the kind of underlying thing with Aquarius is this feeling of isolation or feeling judged for who they truly are. Because a lot of times they can feel so different and like no one understands me and I'm all alone. And like I'm just isolated, because Aquarius really is the energy of kind of being almost otherworldly and being from like having so many gifts that they are essentially from this other planet. And that's why astrology actually rules, or Aquarius rules astrology because it's so forward thinking and advanced that sometimes the people that it's normal people, like the muggles, they're
Yeah.
not going to feel like they fit in. And
Mhm.
so it's the sense of deep loneliness and isolation. And so then it's like, well, I'm just going to go into my own little bubble and be alone, or I'm going to use a substance, or I'm going to do something that makes me feel accepted and makes me feel loved. And this
Mhm.
is why Aquarius and Leo are opposites because it's also a very similar energy where Leo is very like, look at me, love me. And Aquarius is also like, look at me, love me, but like, do I have a community? And it also doesn't want to be normal. It's so unique and it's so different that its biggest fear sometimes is just being normal. It doesn't want to be a cog in the wheel. It doesn't want to be a number, right? It wants to be remembered for something. And so sometimes it can then lash out if it feels like it's not getting whatever it needs, or it's not being recognized and loved and appreciated for its genius,
Mm-hmm. Makes so much sense.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then lastly, Pisces is so spiritual and so tapped in that sometimes all of those messages essentially from the other side and all of the empathic feelings that it picks up when it walks into a room, it's like, oh my gosh, what is mine and what is someone else's? There's like no separation. And so the Pisces thing is that Pisces energies really needs super strong boundaries. And there's this sense of escapism and really overwhelm of like, I don't want to deal with these emotions. So I'm just not going to. I'm just going to sweep it under the rug. I'm going to, gossip about it with someone else, or I'm going to be obsessed with it, but then not actually take action. Or I'm going to drown myself in fear, in sorrow, in being a martyr, and being a victim, in drugs, alcohol, sex, all the things. When really the magic of Pisces is take those emotions, take that energy, and create something with it. Turn it into art, or turn it into a song, or turn it into a vision. Steve Jobs was a Pisces, and he was also very overwhelmed with like, this didn't work. And, everyone knows he like had that big blow up with his company. And then he went and created Apple because he had a bigger vision. And, a lot of Pisces energy, and I think that this actually kind of even ties into the fact that you do work with psychedelics, is because Pisces are so tapped into the other side, and psychedelics take you to the other side. That it's kind of like when you get out of, oh, this is the 3D, and I can tap into the higher piece of my mind, then I actually can create and live in this vision of whatever is higher for humanity and then create that.
Mm-hmm. So my ex-husband is a triple Pisces. So I like
Mm,
and yeah, like I see this energy all the time, like very clearly with him, where and I can see the good and bad in it. Like he is so unbelievably innovative, and he had like he the way that he thinks through ideas, it's like it's as literally as if he is like has a bird's eye view of shit, and he can like go through every detail and like see how it all plays out, but like then can't take action, then gets like it's all very dream state, nothing gets like rooted in the ground. And so, and this isn't to knock him at all, like he's a wonderful person, it's not about that, but I'm just saying this because I have a lot of Pisces people in my life, and all of them are so different. Like my best friend in the whole world is a Pisces, and like I don't understand. Like she's an accountant, and I just like I'm like, how are you a Pisces? But she'll like meet somebody and be like, I'm in love with them, and like it's just like it's very like dreamy energy and like very like romantic, but it's not like fully rooted in like Earth.
which is exactly why it's the opposite of Virgo, right? Because then
Totally.
Virgo is like, I'm going to come in and root this and make it real. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So cool.
So yeah, so if you have your sun, moon, rising, and especially your Chiron in one of these, those are the subconscious blocks to really work through to then be able to come out on the other side and to master, because like those are the biggest things that are going to kind of keep you held down. When you can move through that, it's like you live in freedom. I think at the end of the day, we all just want freedom, and freedom brings you happiness. People say like money doesn't buy happiness, but it does.
Mhm.
Like money, because money gives you options
Freedom.
and money gives you freedom. And
Mm,
it's not necessarily about money, it's about freedom.
totally. Totally. I always break that down for clients too, because like even when it comes to weight, I'm like, well, what do you want? Well, I want to lose 50 pounds. I'm like, that's not really what you want. Like, what would losing 50 pounds bring you? Oh, well, then I could wear clothes that I like, then I can feel good. Well, like, what is that? Like when you break it down, break it down, break it down, all anyone ever really wants is freedom. Like that's all we want.
Totally.
It just comes down to freedom, freedom of choice, freedom to be able to like live, freedom to, when you have freedom, you have peace. And like, that's the next level. And yeah, so super super helpful. So let's talk about, like we kind of alluded to it, but let's talk about, because I know that yesterday basically we were supposed to record this session, then Natalie's done my mindful method program in the detox program, and Natalie is also somebody who like doesn't need me to be super hands-on. Like you do a lot of the healing work on your own, so like she'll like kind of pop in, pop out. But really recently she just ordered a Dutch test, and I got the results yesterday, so I was like, let's go through this. And then 3 hours later, no podcast was recorded.
Sorry.
um but and then but
it's true. Like as soon as we opened it up, and when you look at Natalie, Natalie is not somebody who looks like you have all of these health issues. And sometimes I'll say, even from my own perspective, like I overlook some of these things with clients. Like, look, if you come in, you're a size 4, I'm like, likely hormones aren't necessarily imbalanced, especially if you don't have acne, like any of those things. But so from the perspective of like just another person, you look fairly balanced. And so sometimes these things get overlooked. And I think you said this, because of that Capricorn, it's like, well, you just push through those feelings and like you're so motivated and fulfilled. So you're not actually like tapping into like, well, what's really going on in my body? So we get the Dutch test results. I open up and I was like, not expecting that. I was like, not at all expecting what I saw on her test. And she just broke down in tears. And so, and then the conversation got really obviously heavily spiritual and understanding those subconscious blocks. So Natalie, why don't you just like give us an overview of what happened yesterday and how it relates to the subconscious?
Absolutely. So, for anybody listening, I'm 38 years old and I'm a size 4, and size doesn't matter, but I think that it matters in the sense that people look at me and they're like, "You're thin, you're hot, you're healthy." Like you have all the things on the outside that look like you're good, and I'd say like 88% good, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then I always had this weight that I couldn't lose, and there would just be, these kind of roller coaster of emotions that I would also go through. And I used to be extremely driven by my emotions. And I feel like in the last, honestly, since doing MFM, it really helped me to understand my emotions, to understand why I was binge eating, why I was addicted to sugar and why, like all of the deeper pieces.
Mm-hmm.
But then it got to a point where I was like, I've done everything. Like, I don't think there's anything that I can therapy out of, or subconscious my way out of in terms of this weight loss. I was doing the protective weight, meditation every night, doing the dream thing, like doing dream body, like doing all of these things, plus eating so perfect, plus going on walks, like all of the things, right? And it was just such divine timing. We also got those results back on the Leo full moon, which is my personal house of health and self and identity and physical body. And this was also a very special full moon because it was there's something else that we haven't talked about, but it's called the part of fortune in your chart. And wherever you have the part of fortune is basically this area. I don't know if you've ever never heard of this, but yeah,
Oh.
it's an Arabic term and it's this part.
Oh.
Yeah. So it literally is like a fortune. And so wherever you have this, when you lean into this energy, you become more fortuitous in your life and just literally fortune is given to you. And it doesn't just mean like a bag of gold, that's nice too, but it's like fortune, like this, you telling me yesterday, wow, your progesterone, you have 0 progesterone and you're like really high in estrogen. I started to cry because that was my fortune. That was my gift that I have been waiting since I was 25 years old, probably younger, to be honest, to understand why I couldn't lose this belly fat, after doing everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason I did break down was because there were a lot of reasons. There was one, it was like, okay, this is real. This is kind of like this diagnosis, and now we have to work on this. There was also a happiness in a sense of like relief of like, okay, finally we have a solution, and now there's, steps that we can take. And then I also had a lot of fucking anger. Like the anger was, why has it taken this long? And why did no practitioner up until literally you like help me to get to this point? I have spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars, whether it's on supplements, on working with trainers, on fitness classes, on doctors, anything to do with the body. And it's like, this was that beautiful like moment of the point of fortune being activated for me, and you don't need to have a full moon in Leo experience to have this. You just need to take a Dutch test like to be able to do this. And so it was very profound. And in my personal chart, so, we talked about Pluto in the beginning, and my Pluto is in Scorpio, like, again, those dates are 1983 to 1995. So we all have that. However, mine is in the 4th house, which is the house of Cancer. And Cancer, so for me, it's like I have to move through the 4th house energies to be able to get my blocks out of the way. And the
Okay.
4th house is, because it's Cancer, it's first of all the most feminine sign. You know, Cancer, Leo, and Libra, or excuse me, Cancer, Taurus, and Libra are all the most feminine signs. And Taurus
Dang.
and Libra are because they're ruled by Venus, and then
Mhm.
Cancer is ruled by the moon. So those are the feminine planets. And
Mhm.
so for me, it's like, oh, of course I have this estrogen dominance, which is completely Cancer, which is the mother, which is when you have a baby, that's when it goes up, right? Like you have all of these like female hormones. And then also a lot of this, I'm sure the trauma has to do with my personal mother wound, you know, which my mother and I have an incredible relationship now, but there were a lot of things when I was younger that like we didn't, and also things just from her side of the family and lineage that
Mhm.
came from there. And so it's like when I can move past that, that is where my greatest power comes from.
Mhm.
And, you know, I could have just gone to bed last night and been like, oh my gosh, this was so overwhelming. And what am I going to do? And I have to wait for the supplements, blah, blah. But instead, I was like, fuck this. I'm taking my power back. I am a sorceress, you know, I am working with this. Now we get to work together and like the results will be here. And I will also do, because to be honest, the piece of me coming back to that Capricorn is it's very easy for me to work and work and work and work because I love doing it. But
Mhm.
obviously my body does not,
Yeah.
right? And so it's like my body is begging me,
Mhm.
lean more into your feminine, lean
Mhm.
more into, and people look at me and they're like, you're so feminine because I have long hair and I have, you know, like I look like a very feminine person, which I am. And one of my friends actually described me, he was like, you have a feminine body and face and you have a masculine mind.
Mhm.
And that's like very true for me. And I think that our society today also conditions women to have a masculine mind, and that's why we're also seeing this so many hormone imbalances and holding on to weight because our bodies are not men. We don't have that level of just like burn fat, burn fat. It's like our body's like, oh, we have to work and take care of kids and shop and cook and da 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 da. I'm going to hold on to the weight because I'm not safe. And so we
Mhm.
think sometimes we're not safe because whatever reason, but it's like just living in your day to day life, your body does not feel safe.
Mhm.
So that was really the result of everything yesterday. And, you know, there's so much more in the chart, but it's just so beautiful to be able to see the timing of things and then to be able to see how the chart will actually show you your health, your patterns, your subconscious, your money, everything is in there. And when you align to that and learn these things, you don't have to be in fear anymore because again, we all want freedom and astrology also gives you freedom.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that, Natalie. And the cool thing is, and like this isn't because like you have to work with me specifically, but if you are gonna do further testing like this, work with somebody who, work with maybe a Virgo or like somebody who has like that more like
Yeah.
spiritual side, because Natalie, we pull up the chart. And like if you were going to, this isn't to knock naturopaths or because I know some great spiritual naturopaths, but they might have just given you hormone replacement therapy. Okay, like let's give you progesterone, and sometimes that can work, and right. But when I was like muscle testing Natalie and like really looking at the full picture and just like more so like downloading, I'm like, oh, it's her kidneys. Like actually, like the kidneys is priority right now. And then I'm like, okay, like tell me about how are your teeth doing? And she's like, no, they're fine. Haven't got any cavities, but they are turning gray. And I was just like, yeah, well, that's because of demineralization. And so when you're looking at this from a very, very holistic perspective and you're working with somebody who can actually like listen and like download and receive the messages that need to be received, just like Natalie, you also do this with me. Like you look at my chart, you see where the planets are, but you're like, actually, it's this thing over here. And like it's just you just download it, then we get to work in the order of priority with the body. But I think it's so cool that this came up, like if Leo's in your sixth house, like it was like the Leo full moon is like, okay, actually a cycle's ending. And so much of our conversation yesterday was talking about how like we're done with the suffering, we're done with the bullshit, like it's now time to move forward. And then we get these results, which is in your sixth house of health, and it's like, oh,
Actually, first house,
oh,
first
sorry,
house of body.
first house of body. And then
Yeah.
okay, and so then and now we have the painting on top of the cake, like now we have everything to complete the cycle so we can be done with the suffering.
Exactly. Exactly.
Beautiful. It's
It's
just
so beautiful.
beautiful.
It really is. And I mean, it's so cool too because, you know, since you and I have this actually completion type of energy since you're Aquarius rising, I'm Leo rising. So it's like we see each other very, very well, right? And so the fact that this happened for me where it was almost like I was the receiver because it was in my house of body and you were in the like this is my client type of end. So it was like the patient client type of energy. So, you know, the fact that that even just shows in astrology is so wild.
So cool. Okay, Natalie, I can talk to you forever. Part 3 will be coming. Maybe we do body mapping. We'll see. We'll do a little poll. But I know that prior to you releasing this Holy Wealth program, you also were doing like one-on-one clients to look at their charts. Can you just tell the audience, like, what are the ways to work with you right now? A lot of my clients are entrepreneurs, so I think Holy Wealth would probably be the best avenue for that. But are there other areas or ways people can work with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Holy Wealth is a group program that is going to be starting right around the spring equinox. And it's going to be everything from business sales and then basically doing everything that you and I just did in this episode, minus the health stuff. Go to Jordana for that. Maybe you and I will have to do some type of,
A little
integration
collab. Yeah.
eventually. Yeah. Yeah. But it's going through your chart, it's understanding who you are, your subconscious. And also the beautiful thing that I love about astrology is that it gives you that sense of validation of like, fuck yeah, I'm supposed to be doing this. Now I don't have to sit in the fear of like, am I worthy and blah, 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 and imposter syndrome. It's like, hello, the stars are telling you to do it. Go do it with all of the business support. I've personally worked on and off in business and sales for 15 years. And then if you are not joining the program, you can absolutely do a one-off session with me. And then I also do offer these kind of like hot seat months where for a month we can work together and really deep dive into your business and also into your chart. And it's kind of this like month-long accelerator where you're like, I'm just ready to go, and we can do that together. And that's a private intensive.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. If you guys liked this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll link all of Natalie's links in the show notes. Definitely go and click and do her quiz to get your sun, moon, and rising. If you don't know your sun, moon, and rising at this point, why are you even still listening to my podcast? Honestly, like we've evolved, so like catch up, let's go. But I love that too, because I'm always, every time I meet someone, I'm like, go online trying to find their sun, moon, and rising, and all of the sites suck. And then they
You
send
can
me,
just send them to my website now.
yeah, I'm just gonna send them straight to you. So check out
NatalieHolbrook.com. Yes.
we'll also tag her Instagram. She's amazing. She gives like, I actually just posted you today about the Cancer Aquarius rising. And how the Leo full moon affected that, right in my 7th house of relationships as I go on a cute date tonight. But I love you guys. If you like this episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you back on another episode of the Mindful Method podcast. Bye.